Part 145. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1451. Gu Liang is used to her being as shrewd as a fox sometimes and ignorant as mentally retarded at other times. Ye Gu Liang nodded lightly. Sometimes, in order to make the engraving more beautiful, traditional characters are used, especially when the characters are a little thin. Tang Tang was overjoyed. Yes, his name is very thin. Without waiting for Gu Liang to ask, she had already got up and left the table, and ran up the stairs cheerfully, making a clear rhythmic thud-thump sound. After a while, he came down again, with a small white lady's satchel on his shoulder, and ran out while shouting, "Vole! Vole! I want to go out. Drive fast! Drive fast!" After a while, a tall and thin young man walked into the dining room, came to Gu Liang, bowed his head respectfully. His name is Tian Shu, and he is the driver of the family. Gu Liang sliced the steak unhurriedly. The outer layer was frying oily, and the inner was tender red. It was not really old, but suddenly lost his appetite. "Bring your bodyguards, and follow up when you arrive at the place. You have to find out who you have met and what you have said." Gu Liang put down the knife and fork, looked up at him. "Do you understand?" "Understood, sir," the young man nodded. Tang Tang's urging voice came from outside, "Vole! You are slow to death." Gu Liang said, "Go, don't make your wife wait too long." The driver left in response. Gu Liang picked up the wine glass, shook it lightly. The revived aroma of the wine lingered in his nostrils, took a small sip, and after a while, he heard the sound of the car engine going away. Feeling inexplicably depressed. After all, it was his wife who was being married by Ming Media. She had gone through the ceremony and completed the formalities. Although there were some interests involved in this relationship, it was impossible to ignore it completely. In the empty dining room, Gu Liang sat alone at the dining table, lit a cigarette and smoked slowly, mocking himself a little in his heart. He was obviously married. Why did he still feel lonely? The servant came over to remove the tableware and asked, "Sir, do you need to leave some food for your wife?" Gu Liang smiled lightly and said, "Stay." It was already 9 o'clock in the evening when Tang Tang came home. She didn't even have time to say hello, and hurried into the bathroom as soon as she came back. The driver reported to Gu Liang, "My wife went to the cemetery and started looking for the tomb after entering. She didn't ask us to help, and she didn't allow us to get too close. She probably found it later and sat in front of the tombstone. About half an hour, and then came back." Gu Liang asked, "Whose tomb is it?" "We stood in the distance, memorized the location, and went to check after my wife left. The name of the person on the tombstone is Mu Zhenning." Gu Liang frowned upon hearing this, and remained silent. "Mu Zhenning, isn't he the third young master of the Mu family? Committed murder and escaped, and later died in another place. It was Mu Rongcheng's burial for this person." How did Tang Tang know this person? But, there are too many weird things about her, and this one is not missing. Gu Liang returned to the room thoughtfully, sat for a while, and Tang Tang came in after taking a shower. Her hair was wet and dripping again. Gu Liang asked her to use a dry hair cap. She pouted and complained, "It's very uncomfortable, like holding a big mallet." Gu Liang had no choice but to wipe her hair with a dry towel himself. He really couldn't stand her dripping water everywhere in the room. While wiping, he asked, "Where did you go today?" "Going to the cemetery. It's terrible. You can never imagine how many mosquitoes there are, almost killing me." She chattered. Gu Liang laughed, "You are the only living person at night. Who will you bite if you don't bite? Why do you suddenly want to go to that place today?" Tang Tang replied simply, "I won't tell you, it's a secret." Gu Liang's movements stopped. In the end, I felt a little relieved. In fact, it's good for her to be like this. She can speak up when she can, and if she can't, she doesn't speak up. Gu Liang loosened the towel in his hand, and gently fiddled with the half-dried hair, which was black and thick, with a beautiful luster. He knew she was a little childish, but he still wanted to make some things clear. Tang Tang, do you know the relationship between us? I thought about it carefully, and I think that Gu Liang probably hasn't fallen in love with her yet, but he would mind, because he has already accepted Tang Tang as his own. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1452. Once again, Tang Tang is not a minor after being a ghost for decades. He is finally a human being. He is somewhat ignorant, and ignorant all rhythmic book reviews will be deleted. Husband and wife relationship. She answered it as a matter of course. Gu Liang teased her with a smile. What is the relationship between husband and wife? Do you really think I'm stupid? She turned her head and gave him a white look. Of course I know, the relationship between husband and wife is a legal relationship for sleeping. If there is no such relationship, we are sleeping on the same bed now, we are male robbers and female prostitutes. The corner of Gu Liang's mouth twitched slightly. What a messy explanation. Regardless of what Gu Liang thought, Tang Tang grabbed his hand and stretched it into her clothes. Scratch me, it's almost itching to death. She was wearing a silk suspender night dress, which was naked inside. Gu Liang felt on her back and found 2 small mosquito bites. Tang Tang immediately said, that's right there. Gu Liang, give me a scratch. She didn't stay idle, she scratched her legs and arms with both hands, and she scratched the white and tender skin with red marks. Be gentle, don't scratch the skin, Gu Liang said helplessly. But it's really itchy. She pursed her mouth, as if dissatisfied with his strength. She moved her back to rub against his claws. At this time, Gu Liang's cell phone rang. This is his private number, only his cronies know it, and he won't call at night unless it's urgent. Gu Liang picked up his mobile phone to answer the call. Tang Tang rubbed over with reluctance. He had to answer the phone with one hand, and use the other hand to tickle her. The call came from Tong Wu, who said, someone found a male corpse at the foot of Yanta Mountain. 2 witnesses claimed that there was a large amount of black spider web-like substance on the skin of the corpse, but the forensic doctor did not see it after arriving at the scene. I didn't find those black things either. I think this may be a clue, and I have sent people to Yanta Mountain to investigate. Gu Liang frowned deeply. Has the identity of the deceased been found out? There are people in the police station, but there is no news yet, Tong Wu replied. Ye Gu Liang nodded slightly, and ordered, find those 2 witnesses as soon as possible, and ask yourself about the situation at that time. Yes, I will call you back as soon as I have news. This side was talking about business, but Tang Tang got impatient and shouted loudly, Gu Liang, can you do it? Use some strength. Tong Wu. Gu Liang had blue veins on his forehead and looked at Tang Tang. Don't be silly. Before the words say came out of her mouth, she had rushed over to complain, I'm dying of itching. You're still talking on the phone. There was only a blind tone on the phone, and it seemed that Tong Wu hung up the phone decisively. Gu Liang, who has always been calm and elegant, really felt driven to a desperate situation, embarrassed and annoyed, pinching her soft waist, wishing to kill her. But this guy didn't realize it. He still rubbed his body vigorously to relieve the itching, and muttered while rubbing, I'm already sleeping with you, don't be so stingy. Gu Liang was angry and annoyed, and at this time, regardless of her demeanor, she directly threw her on the bed, tore off the pitifully thin silk nightgown, and pressed it viciously under her body, so that she would know what sleep is. This delicate skin is white and tender, juicy like a ripe and plump peach. It seems to melt on the tongue with a sip, it is soft and slippery, and it is extremely fragrant. Gu Liang unknowingly became gentle, without the original fierceness, gentle and patient guidance. This kind of thing pays attention to your love and my willingness, and blindly being tough will lose the fun. He was originally worried about scaring her, but this guy didn't play cards according to common sense. Not only did he not know how to be afraid, but he also didn't know how to be ashamed. Special cooperation. When he kissed her comfortably, she would hum softly a few times. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1453. Gu Liang was silent. Silence. Silence. Taking a deep breath, sitting up, my mind regained a little clarity. Tang Tang looked at him sideways, her eyes sparkling and confused, as if she was saying, "Why don't you continue?" Gu Liang sighed in his heart, "What is this?" He sat on the edge of the bed with his forehead on his hands, feeling absurd that he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The little wife who was married by the media, the little wife with a delicate body and a soft body, lay naked on the bed, but he couldn't do it. Anyway, after living for more than 30 years, even if he didn't take the position of patriarch, he is still a normal mature man. He should be decent and keep the bottom line. If he even harms an ignorant girl, it would be too cruel. After all, he is not Murong Cheng. After thinking about it, divorce is definitely not an option. This girl can help him heal his illness, so she must stay with her, but he can't hold back like this all the time, can he? Gu Liang sighed, went to the bathroom to rinse, and when he calmed down and returned to the room, Tang Tang had already fallen asleep with his arms around the pillow. She slept defenselessly, with a carefree face, as pure as spring water, as tender as tofu, which made Gu Liang's heart beat hard for several rounds. The feeling in his heart is indescribable. In short, he is very worried. Ever since she figured out the difference between traditional Chinese characters, Tang Tang's learning motivation was like a waterfall, falling straight down to the bottom. Gu Liang turned over her tablet computer. Only the two apps, Physics Master and Online Dictionary, were left, and the others were all uninstalled, replaced by various messy games, and audiovisual software that can watch animations. Interests come and go quickly. Games and animations can only fascinate her for a while, and soon they will be replaced by others. However, the Physics Master app is always there. It is rare to see little girls interested in physics. After coming back from the company, seeing her frowning and seriously watching the online course, Gu Liang couldn't help but ask, "Can you understand the lecture?" She stared at the video with a serious expression. "Sometimes I think I understand it, and sometimes I feel like I don't understand it." Gu Liang laughed and said, "That's why I didn't understand." Tang Tang pursed her lips in annoyance, then sighed rather melancholy, and moved the video progress bar forward, as if intending to re-listen to the previous section. "Why do you like physics?" Gu Liang asked her. "I don't really like it." Tang Tang watched the video and murmured, "I'm just curious and want to know why I exist." Gu Liang smiled and said, "It sounds quite esoteric. Maybe you can learn more about biology, such as cell division and biological evolution." She shook her head, put down her tablet, and said to Gu Liang, "Look, when it comes to ghosts and monsters, people never believe them because they haven't seen them with their own eyes, but they haven't seen electrons, atoms, ions, or molecules, but firmly believe in the existence of these things. It's really strange. It's probably because, although I haven't seen it with my own eyes, scientists have used certain instruments or formulas to prove that they do exist, and further let everyone perceive their existence." Gu Liang said, "As for ghosts and monsters, there has been a lack of proper ways and means to perceive their existence." Tang Tang tilted her head and lowered her eyes, as if in thought. Gu Liang finds it interesting. What strange questions are she thinking about every day in her little head? Tang Tang suddenly took his hand, put it on her chest, and ask seriously, "Do you feel me now?" Gu Liang. Okay. Perceived. One hand just wrapped it, very soft. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1454. Gu Liang was going to the company that day, and Tang Tang clamored to go with him. When she was studying, she was very quiet, and when she didn't study, she would be bored in various ways. Seeing Gu Liang going out early and returning late every day, she suspected that he was enjoying himself outside alone, and he didn't bring her with him. It was too much. I don't care. I'm going. I'm going. It will only be more boring if you go. Gu Liang felt helpless and had a headache. I went to the company for a meeting, it's really not fun at all. The personable and calm patriarch of the Gu family can only act like an old woman when encountering such a troublesome person, persuading him earnestly. What else? Beat her? Those with thin skin and tender meat can't do it. Scold her? He may not be able to scold. What's more, he was counting on her to heal himself. In short, this is a little ancestor, and I can't afford to provoke him. Gu Liang said, I'll download a few learning apps for you, and when the company's work is done, I'll take you out to play. It's boring, Tang Tang pouted, very displeased. There are those things over and over again, the more you learn, the harder it gets. I don't want to learn. The feeling in Gu Liang's heart, it turns out that this guy has only learned simple and interesting things, no wonder he advanced so quickly. Don't you like physics? In fact, many physics materials on the internet are compiled in English. If you learn English well, it will be much easier to look up materials in the future. He downloaded 2 or 3 apps for beginners in English, and handed them to her. Try it first, if you find it difficult, forget it. Now these app software, it is not clear how to teach, anyway, animation special effects are more lively than one. Tang Tang was immediately attracted. At any rate, it was something new, and it finally gave her a temporary break from the idea of going to the company. After Gu Liang arrived at the company, he attended meetings and handled affairs as usual. When he had spare time, he asked about the case of Yanta Mountain. The police were still investigating. There are not many clues, and the true identity of the corpse has not been found out so far. Gu Liang couldn't be sure whether the black spider web seen by witnesses was the same thing as the one on his arm. There must always be a reason for everything. For example, when some people are terminally ill, the first thing they think about is how to survive. After solving the problem of how to survive, I began to think about why I got this disease, find out the cause, and take precautions in the future. In the evening, the preoccupied Gu Liang returned to the villa. The car was about to stop, and Tang Tang was seen running out wearing a mint blue dress, and happily called him, Gu Liang. Gu Liang. The skirt of the dress is so large that it flutters like a butterfly's wings, thin and light. When Gu Liang got out of the car, she just threw herself into his arms, raised her small face, and looked at him expectantly and excitedly. Quickly, test me, test me. Gu Liang asked with a smile, what's the test? English. Oh, what have you learned today? He put his arm around her shoulders, walking inside while talking. Tang Tang said, I have learned to count from 1 to 10, and I have also learned a lot of words, and there is another thing, you need to add s to plural nouns. Gu Liang smiled, thinking that she was like his own pistachio, but he forgot the annoying energy of her pestering him to go to the company in the morning. The two sat on the sofa in the living room, and the servant brought the cut fruits. Tang Tang pointed to the oranges on the fruit plate and said, orange. She should be praised for being so serious about studying. Gu Liang raised her hand and touched her head, and said with a smile, good boy. Tang Tang was slightly stunned, looking at him with a confused look for some reason. Without waiting for Gu Liang to ask, she pursed her lips and rubbed against him, sat on his lap, with her face pressed against his shoulder, close to him, looking very attached. "What's wrong?" Gu Liang asked in a low voice. She didn't speak, just took his wrist and placed it on top of her own head. Gu Liang probably understood what she meant, and lightly patted her head again. So good." Tang Tang curled up obediently in his arms, closed her eyes, and said in a very soft voice, "I like this, it will be very comfortable. Blessed to have each other in this life." Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1455. Want to be praised. Want to be liked. I also want to be cherished and be together forever, never leave. But it's so difficult. Leaning on Gu Liang's chest, she thought silently. Even he, sooner or later, will reveal disgust, hatred, fear, or disgust. He, and him, they are all the same. It is always a mistake to think that she is inhuman when she is a ghost, and that she is not worthy of being a human when she is a human. Obviously she also exists in this world, so why is there no way out and must be lost forever? She really didn't understand, really couldn't figure it out. If the ending was doomed to perish, then why did she appear? Why does it exist? Gu Liang felt that Tang Tang was a little different today, although she was as coquettish as usual, but she was very clingy. How sticky is it? Clinging onto him until dinner time. He put on a stern face. What does it look like? Eat well. She acted coquettishly. Don't be angry, at worst, I will suck it out for you at night, okay? The servant serving the dishes trembled and almost dropped the plate. Gu Liang is so tired. Forget it, let her go. So Tang Tang happily sat on him and finished dinner. He doesn't stop sleeping at night, touches his nose and says nose, touches his eyes and says eye, touches his mouth and says mouth, seems very proud after learning a few English words, and keeps showing off. Gu Liang patted her little paw off countless times, and she touched it countless times. Poked the navel and asked, "Gu Liang, what about the navel?" Gu Liang closed his eyes and replied, "Belly button." Her little hand continued to go down, and when it was close to the critical point, Gu Liang took it away. She persevered and went to touch other places. Touching his broad and warm palm, he said, "This is a hand." Then she hugged his hand and didn't say anything for a while. Gu Liang thought to herself that she was finally sleepy. At this time, Tang Tang hugged his hand and said, "Gu Liang, can you put your finger inside me like that day?" Gu Liang. Seeing that he didn't respond, Tang Tang acted like a baby again. "Are you okay?" Gu Liang took out his hand and patted her on the head twice. "Don't make trouble, go to sleep." Tang Tang crawled on top of him, humming like a cat, her voice soft and soft. "Put it in, it's very comfortable, just put it in for a while." No matter how determined Gu Liang was, he couldn't stand such a straightforward temptation, and his breathing quickly became rough. After thinking about it, there was really nothing to bear. It was originally a legal relationship to sleep, so he immediately wrapped his hands around her waist and rubbed her into his arms. Kiss her, while stroking her, while sucking her petal-like lips, coaxing her to entangle with himself. She learns quickly and is also very courageous. Her small tongue is fragrant and soft, which is actually the bravery of a newborn calf, as if she wants to eat him whole. Gu Liang made her comfortable for a while, and wanted to be comfortable himself. At the critical moment, he struggled again. He stopped, covered her body and panted heavily, and sweat dripped down his strong chest. She looked so well behaved, so delicious, she stared at him with blurred eyes, and called his name coquettishly and charmingly, "Gu Liang, it's so comfortable." Gu Liang's sanity was on the verge of collapsing, and he asked her hoarsely, "Tang Tang, how old are you?" Tang Tang snorted and said, "Girl, I'll be 18 forever." Snapped. Gu Liang slapped her butt lightly. gnashing his teeth, tell the truth. She pursed her mouth aggrievedly, it's been 30 or 50 years, I really can't remember. Gu Liang was already tense, even his neck was flushed red, tense to the extreme, he couldn't bear it any longer. Forget it, don't care if what she said is true or not, let's get comfortable first before speaking. There are only 4 chapters today. My group CP likes to use antonyms, justice and evil, rationality and sensibility, black belly and innocence, maturity and childishness. What is the next pair of antonyms to write? Haven't figured it out yet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1456. Gu Liang has an elegant, handsome, calm, and introverted image on the outside, but in bed he is the exact opposite of fierce. No matter how patient and gentle the foreplay is, it can't conceal his desire to hide evil intentions. Because of the emphasis on quality, there are various means. In addition, I have been vegetarian for too long, and this night was endlessly hearty, but I forgot to restrain myself. When he woke up the next day, when he opened his eyes, he saw her lying limply on his chest, sleeping soundly. When Gu Liang stood up for a while, she woke up, humming and hugging his neck, not letting him get up. Gu Liang maintained the lying posture, raised his arms to pick up the mobile phone on the bedside table, looked at it, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning, and there was a missed call. I haven't slept so deeply for a long time, and I didn't even hear the phone ring. It's also because Tongwu has become more cautious recently. If he rings the bell 2 or 3 times and fails to answer, he will hang up on his own and will not bother him anymore. Gu Liang patted Tang Tang's head and coaxed her in a low voice, be good, there is still something to do in the company, you can sleep a little longer. I don't know if it was because of the relationship, but when talking to her, his tone became soft unconsciously. Tang Tang hugged him tightly. Where is the company? Why is there something to do every day? She muttered unhappily, can't I not go? Gu Liang said with a smile, there is a new job every day, of course we have to go every day, just like we need to eat every day. Tang Tang snorted, you won't die if you don't eat for a day. But you will be hungry. Gu Liang squeezed her face, when you are hungry, you will eat more than usual the next day. The same is true for work. If you accumulate it until the next day, you will be more tired. But people don't want to part with you. Tang Tang hugged him coquettishly, but still refused to let go. Gu Liang thinks that she is sometimes like a child who lacks love, and always wants her parents to play with her every day without going to work. It's just that this child is too delicate and coquettish, his naked body wraps around him, soft and warm, and ignites everywhere. Gu Liang's voice was slightly hoarse, Tang Tang, don't make trouble. She raised her head and nibbled at his Adam's apple, her voice was as delicate as a small fish, it got into his ear socket and tickled him, does he still want it? Gu Liang took a deep breath, kneading her body with strength, and there was a hint of warning in his voice, aren't you afraid of pain? She listened, with a hesitant look, her dark and bright eyes wandering, like a greedy cat, afraid of fishbone getting stuck in her mouth, but reluctant to part with the smell of fish. In the end, he still couldn't bear it, and said to Gu Liang in a good manner, it's just a small bite, it's too big to eat. Her nasty talk has always been self-taught, Gu Liang only felt that the blood in his whole body was rushing straight to his forehead. Really? I was almost driven crazy by her. So I can't care about anything. Crazy is crazy. This absurdity lasted until noon. As strong as Gu Liang, he also felt weak at this time. Even if it is made of iron, it can't stand such nonsense day and night. Tang Tang was paralyzed on the bed limply, sullen, but in a good mood, She kept looking at Gu Liang and smiling, her eyes curved like crescent moons. Gu Liang is changing clothes. Clean shirt, elegant suit, appropriate tie, still looks like a well-dressed gentleman. He leaned over and kissed her, and said, "You rest first, I will ask the servant to bring the food later." She gave a soft hum. After freshening up and changing clothes, Gu Liang went downstairs to eat, made a few phone calls by the way, rescheduled the meeting time, and checked the schedule sent by the secretary. Just as he was dealing with some affairs, he saw Tang Tang walking down the stairs slowly. "Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1457. She seemed to have just taken a bath, her fair cheeks were rosy, her long black hair was wet and draped behind her back, her expression was still dazed, probably because she hadn't had enough sleep. Gu Liang said a little funny, "Why did you come down? Are you too hungry to wait?" Tang Tang sat down next to him and snorted softly, "Do you think I don't know? You must want to sneak to the company while I'm asleep." Gu Liang couldn't laugh or cry, he went to the company in a dignified manner. Why did he go secretly? "When you wake up, I will almost be back," Gu Liang said. "If you feel bored, you can watch cartoons and English at home." "No," Tang Tang insisted, "I'm going to the company, I'll go wherever you go." "I can't help it." Gu Liang had no choice but to let her eat first. Maybe she would forget about going to the company when she was happy to eat. Tang Tang was really hungry, so she ate quickly with a table of soups and vegetables, and two maids stood behind her to help her with her hair. When she was full, most of her hair was dry. She wiped her mouth and said to Gu Liang, "I'm going to change clothes, just wait for me." As he spoke, he ran upstairs. After running up the stairs, he seemed uneasy, and turned his head every 3 steps, with an uneasy and flustered expression. "You are not allowed to leave, you must wait for me," Tang Tang warned. Seeing her worrying about gains and losses, Gu Liang couldn't bear it, smiled and nodded, "Understood, I will wait for you, go and change clothes." Tang Tang got his assurance, with a smile on her face, she happily ran upstairs. Afraid that Gu Liang would abandon her and go first, she quickly changed her clothes and wore a fairy-like smoky purple silk dress with delicate folds at the hem. When she went downstairs, she looked like surging waves, very fresh and charming. Gu Liang wiped the sweat from the tip of her nose with a tissue, and said, "Don't run around after going to the company. When I have a meeting, you can stay in the office and watch cartoons and play games, there are drinks in the refrigerator. Afternoon tea will be brought in when the time comes, but you are not allowed to rummage through documents. If you need anything, ask the secretary at the door." "Understood." Tang Tang's voice was clear, as expected she was full, and her whole body was in good spirits. Gu Liang lowered his eyes, glanced at the hand she was holding his arm affectionately, was silent for a moment, and then told her, "Walk well after arriving at the company, don't chatter, make loud noises, act like a baby, don't swear." Tang Tang immediately pursed her lips, and pushed him unhappily, "You just don't want to take me after talking so much. I've been so good to you, and I've slept with you so many times. You still despise me." After speaking, as if he had been wronged by the sky, his eyes were red. Gu Liang sighed, said nothing, took her hand, went out, got in the car, and went to the company. The interior of his car is luxurious, the air conditioner is turned on in the car, biscuits and snacks are placed on the central small table, and there are beverages and mineral water in the car refrigerator. Tang Tang ate and drank in the car, his mood improved, and he put his arms around his arm to watch the reverse scenery outside the car window. After a while, he seemed to be sitting uncomfortably, and his buttocks twisted and turned. "What's wrong?" Gu Liang asked her. Tang Tang bit her lip, leaned into his ear hesitantly, and whispered, "It hurts there." Gu Liang was stunned for a moment, and quickly realized what she was talking about, and asked, "Didn't you be fine when you ate just now?" "I don't know." She hummed, "Gu Liang, it hurts so much." Gu Liang knocked on her forehead, "I told you to rest at home, but you insisted on coming out, do you know it hurts now?" "Then he wants to be with you." She was even more aggrieved. "Come to the office with me first," he sighed, picked her up, held her in his arms, and patted her head. "It's almost there. There is a rest room in the office. Bear with me." Tang Tang sat in his arms and twisted. In fact, this posture seemed to be worn down even more, but she couldn't bear it. Leaning on Gu Liang's strong shoulders, she thought to herself, "It's so comfortable to be hugged, so comfortable to be touched on the head, so comfortable to sleep with Gu Liang. Blessed to have each other in this life." Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1458. During the short time in the car, Tang Tang had a short dream. In the dream, she and Mu Zhenning were on an old ferry. She pulled him, cried and yelled, but he jumped into the river without even looking at her. The river was so cold that day, and the screw blades of the ferry stirred up the ice, but he jumped anyway, for the woman. Leaving her alone, her voice became hoarse from crying, and her life was lost, and she still didn't wait for him to come back. He clearly promised to stay with her all the time, but when things came to an end, he just threw it away. What a joke. Gu Liang's car drove into the group's internal dedicated garage, and the elevator went straight to the CEO's office on the top floor. The decoration of the office is simple and elegant, with a leisure area on one side and an office area on the other. There is a mirror next to the TV wall, which is designed as an invisible door. After being pushed open, there is a separate lounge with a large space. Gu Liang called a female secretary to come in to take care of Tang Tang, sort of arranging a guide for her. He was busy with himself and went to a meeting after staying in the office for a short time. I was also restless during the meeting, glancing at my phone from time to time, worried that she would cause trouble outside. It's really because this guy's personality is like a ticking time bomb. When he's good, he's silent and very good. When he's in trouble, he explodes and no one can cure him. At this time, a general manager had just finished his report at the meeting. Gu Liang glanced around, everyone had a thick stack of documents in their hands. He sighed slightly, pinching the space between his brows, "It's too long." The accompanying secretary was taken aback when he heard the words, and looked at Gu Liang, "Chairman. The future work reports should be as concise as possible." Gu Liang said, "The business volume of the group is expanding year by year. If the content of each meeting is continuously accumulated, it will only waste a lot of time and cost." Everyone looked at each other in blank dismay. Gu Liang said indifferently, "Everyone will have a maximum of 5 minutes next, and the last 15 minutes will be for comprehensive discussions." "Ah, well, yes, Chairman. Even if it only takes 5 minutes for each person, it will take more than an hour for more than a dozen people to complete the lap." Gu Liang has another meeting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, but at least there is some time in between, so he can spend time with his wife. When he returned to the office, he didn't see Tang Tang, so he went to the rest room inside. There was no one in the room. A quilt was piled up on the grey tatami. Gu Liang lifted the quilt, but still did not see anyone, but found a pair of pale pink underwear. Panties. Underpants. He was suddenly enraged. This guy actually ran out without his pants on. If you think about it, you can guess that she must have felt the pain, so she simply took off her panties. Can it not hurt? Originally, the place was a little red and swollen. Why are you wearing a tea bag? The underwear was clenched into a small ball in Gu Liang's hands. His entire scalp was numb, he was angry, and he couldn't laugh or cry. Where in his life has he ever had such a heart? When going out, the secretary happened to come in with afternoon tea snacks. Gu Liang asked her, "Where is the wife?" The female secretary was stunned for a moment, then looked around suspiciously. He was still there just now. Gu Liang raised her forehead. It seems that in the future, she will have to send someone to watch her 24 hours a day to be safe. After being depressed for a while, he ordered, "Let the manager of the security department come over." The secretary saw that his face was not looking good, so he quickly said yes, put down the refreshments, and stepped back cautiously. Gu Liang sighed in his heart. The group is very large, and it is not easy to find someone, so we can only call the surveillance to find out where she went. Now, he only hopes that when he finds her, she hasn't disappeared yet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life. Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1459. In fact, Tang Tang didn't want to run around. She was just bored and wanted to find Gu Liang on the floor where he had a meeting, but she was not familiar with the floor structure and couldn't find a place. I wanted to take the elevator back the same way, but found that I couldn't go back, because the president's exclusive elevator couldn't be used without a key. Tang Tang took it for granted that if she couldn't take the original elevator, she would take another elevator, as long as she could get to the top floor. At this time, she still didn't know that other elevators could not reach the floor of the president's office, and even the emergency passage was closed, in order to absolutely guarantee the privacy and safety of the group's top leaders. After getting into the elevator and riding back and forth, Tang Tang realized that she couldn't get to the floor she expected, so she went back to the first floor in a daze, and chose another elevator. Just like this, I fumbled up and down on the elevator, people kept coming in and people going out. During the period, she met several female white-collar workers holding yogurt cups, and they were gossiping about their relationship history. I always thought that the final winner would be Sister Lemon, but I never expected that the one who married in the end was not any of them. Our chairman broke up with Lemon a long time ago. If you guess Lemon, you might as well guess Alina, a half-race. She looks so pretty. What's the use of being beautiful? What's important is talent and brains. Lemon is the only one among all the women in the chairman who has more than 3 years. That's right, among the ex-girlfriends, Sister Lemon is the one who is the closest to the chairman. Tang Tang listened for a while, and couldn't help asking curiously, "Who is Sister Lemon?" Those female white-collar workers looked back at her. "Are you new here? The art director of the production department doesn't even know." Tang Tang asked again, "Where is the filming department?" "It's in Block C." While chatting, the elevator door opened, and the floor they were going to had already arrived. The white-collar workers walked out of the elevator in twos, and one of them belatedly asked his colleague, "Does that girl in the elevator look familiar?" "Does it look familiar? I didn't notice just now." "Does it look like the chairman's new wife?" "Haha, don't scare people, it would be a coincidence." "That's right, it can't be such a coincidence." A group of people walked away laughing and laughing, leaving only one behind and talking to himself, "Could it be that I saw it wrong? But it looks very similar to the news photos." Tang Tang got out of the elevator and started to look for the filming department in Block C. This place is called Yingting Entertainment Group. It covers a large area. It consists of 3 high-rise buildings at different heights to form a park. The buildings are connected by sky gardens, and the landscape design is very beautiful. Tang Tang first walked through the sky garden and came to building C, and then asked the information desk to find out the floor where the filming department was located. After arriving at the place, I found that this is not a conventional office area, but a very open studio with many different scenes set up. A tall woman is directing the scene. The angle of the lighting is not right, it should be higher and softer. Where is the makeup artist? Touch up the makeup of the model. Another staff member asked her, "Sister Lemon, is this position okay?" Tang Tang's gaze was attracted by that woman, and she subconsciously walked over there. I didn't go too close, and was stopped by the staff halfway, asking her what's the matter. "I'm looking for Sister Lemon," Tang Tang said. The studio was relatively quiet, so many people heard Tang Tang's voice and looked over, including the woman named Sister Lemon. "What do you want with Miss Lemon?" Tang Tang frowned slightly, and after thinking about it, she was actually fine. "I'm just looking for her, can't I look for her if I have nothing to do?" What she said was true, but it was a bit choking to the ears of others. Everyone's expressions became subtle, and then, someone recognized Tang Tang's identity, and the atmosphere became even weirder. "What is the purpose of the present looking for the ex? Are you messing up?" The woman named Sister Lemon was very free and easy, walked up to Tang Tang in a few steps, and said calmly, "It's not convenient to talk here, go to my office to chat." Tang Tang nodded and followed her. "Sorry, it's late, because I had a fight with someone while coding, alas, it's very annoying. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again." Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 1460. Tang Tang didn't ask anything, and she followed when they told her to go to the office. The office is very different from the conventional impression. The walls are covered with photographic works, and the long display racks are filled with all kinds of strange things, such as trophies and certificates, as well as decorations from all over the world, such as a wooden man with a totem, an African lion, etc. Teeth, stones retrieved from Pacaya volcano. Tang Tang also saw a photo of Sister Lemon and the indigenous people. So dark, so thin, with patterns painted on their faces and rings, don't they hurt? Tang Tang looked curiously, and subconsciously touched his face. A chuckle came from beside him. She turned her head and saw the person named Sister Lemon holding up a cup and asking her, "What do you want to drink?" "I only have coffee and water here." Tang Tang asked for coffee, but it was too bitter, she only took a sip, her whole face wrinkled. "Is there anything you can do for me?" The woman looked at her with a faint smile. "I don't like to beat around the bush, so if you have anything to say, just speak up." Sister Lemon is not really called Lemon. Her surname is Ning, and her single name is a cute word. She works for the group and is also a well-known photographer in China. Ning Meng and Gu Liang had a relationship, so naturally they also heard about Gu Liang's marriage. This can be regarded as a major event in Wenzhou. On the day of the wedding, photos of the bride and groom were overwhelming, and she was blocked by reporters several times. These reporters always like to make trouble out of nothing, chasing after her and asking, "How does it feel when Gu Liang gets married but the bride is not her?" It is estimated that Gu Liang's other ex-girlfriends were not spared either. It's just that she didn't expect that in addition to being blocked by reporters, she was also blocked by the real wife. Ning Meng half closed her eyes and looked at Tang Tang. She is a photographer with vicious eyes. After looking at her from head to toe, she has only one comment: small. So small. It's not about how young Tang Tang is, but the ignorance that is naturally revealed in his eyes, making him look very young. Just like the wild animals she encountered while collecting wind in the wild, she suddenly saw humans, a little novel, a little vigilant, and a little innocent and cute. Of course, wild animals are dangerous at the same time, and if they accidentally break their rules, disaster will be imminent. "You are so big," Tang Tang said. Ning Meng froze for a moment, followed Tang Tang's gaze and looked down, only to find that Tang Tang was looking at her breasts. "Actually, it's okay. There are more people older than me." Ning Meng raised her chest slightly, making her breasts look more perfect. "But I'm the real one, without filling or watering." Tang Tang touched her hand silently, frowning slightly. "In fact, it's not too small, but compared with others, it looks a bit pitiful." Ning Meng smiled and said, you don't have to care about this. Gu Liang picks women, but breasts are not the most important thing. Tang Tang asked, then what does he value? Here Ning Meng pointed to her head. Tang Tang thought about it for a while, and said in a tangled voice, he can touch his head too, but I think he seems happier when he touches his chest. Ning Meng burst into laughter, and laughed loudly, oh, why are you so funny? Ha 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 ha. Tang Tang. What's so funny? She is telling the truth. Gu Liang likes women with brains, do you understand what I mean? Ning Meng wiped away the tears from the corners of her eyes, and said to Tang Tang, having ambitions, ideals, independence, and self-improvement, always knowing what he wants, it's easy to be attracted to this type of woman. Tang Tang thought for a while and asked, so, the reason why you two separated in the end is because you lost your mind? Ning Meng. After being silent for a while, she pointed at Tang Tang wanting to be angry but couldn't get angry and said, you should really be thankful that the person you are looking for today is me, not Alina. Believe it or not, you don't even have a dirty word in your face.